Every senior lawyer has had this moment. The document lands on Friday afternoon. 200 pages, 3 appendices, a deadline of Tuesday. You don't have the weekend you'd want, and you'd need 3 days even if you did. You have a partner meeting Tuesday morning at 9, and you need to walk in knowing what's in the thing. This is Foundations Episode 4, a 4-pass protocol for documents that are too long, too dense, and too due. Worked through tax memos because they're the densest example most senior practitioners ever encounter. But the same 4 passes apply to construction expert reports, regulatory submissions, financial reports, M&A document rooms, and any document where the volume defeats the conventional read. First, the problem. Every senior lawyer has 2 reading modes. Skim, which catches structure but misses the buried clause that decides the matter. Deep, which catches everything but takes a week. The impossible document fits neither mode. The skim doesn't work because the buried clause is exactly the thing the impossible document buries. The deep read won't fit because it doesn't fit. The deadline is Tuesday, and the deep read is 3 days. What the 4 passes do is make a third mode possible: structured deep reading at skim speed. You don't read every word, you read the right words. Claude reads the rest and tells you which words you can skip. Worked example: a tax memo, 200 pages, Tuesday morning meeting. Tax memos are the densest documents most senior practitioners ever encounter. Hundreds of pages of technical analysis, nested cross-references, citation chains running through statutes and case law and ATO guidance and prior rulings, conclusions buried in the analysis rather than stated up front. If the protocol works on tax memos, it works on anything. It works on construction expert reports. It works on regulatory submissions to ASIC or APRA. It works on financial reports, M&A document rooms, trial bundles, expert opinions, due diligence memoranda. If you've ever been handed a document and thought, "I don't have time for this," the 4 passes below buy you the time. 4 passes, 1 weekend. Pass 1. Map. Get the spine of the document. The arguments, the sections, the conclusions, the authorities relied on, the assumptions made. Pass 2. Stress test. Force Claude to find weaknesses, contradictions, buried concessions. The argument that's weakest. The conclusion the analysis least supports. Pass 3. Cross-reference. Check every authority cited. Cases, statutes, regulations. Verify the citations against the original sources. Flag anything fabricated or stretched. Pass 4. Brief yourself. Generate the 1-page brief you'd take into a senior partner meeting. The thesis. The 3 things that matter. The recommendation. Built to run sequentially. Each one feeds the next. Each one buys you back time you didn't have. Pass 1. Map the spine of the document. Upload the document. Ask Claude for the structural map, not a summary, a skeleton. The central thesis in 1 sentence. The chain of arguments in order. The conclusions reached with section references for each. The authorities relied on. The assumptions made that aren't justified in the document itself. 20 minutes later, you have the map. Read it. Now you know what you're reading. This pass is the foundation. Everything that follows hangs from it. If the spine map is wrong, the other 3 passes drift. Spend the time on the prompt. Get the map right. The other 3 passes are quick once you have it. We'll come back to the actual prompt for this pass in a few slides because it's the one most worth getting right. Pass 2. Stress test the argument. Where is the argument weakest? Which conclusion does the underlying analysis least support? What is conceded that isn't acknowledged in the conclusions? What is assumed that isn't justified in the analysis? Claude has now read the document end to end. Use that. The contradiction between Section 4 and Section 11 that nobody noticed because nobody read both with the other in mind. The buried concession on page 147 that undermines the thesis on page 9. The conclusion that doesn't actually follow from the authorities cited. This is where the time you saved on the spine map gets reinvested. The stress test pass finds problems in 20 minutes that traditional reading wouldn't find at all. Episode 6's 4 moves apply directly here. Demand the worst case. Role-play the opponent. The same protocol turned on the document in front of you. Pass 3. Cross-reference every authority. Ask Claude to extract every authority cited in the document. Cases, statutes, regulations, secondary sources. Then, and this is non-negotiable, verify them yourself against the original. Yes, yourself. The hallucination files exists because this step is non-negotiable. Even if Claude flags none of the citations as uncertain, you check anyway. The verification protocol from the hallucination files episodes applies here directly. Source check, quote check, reasoning trace. In a tax memo, it's worse than in a court submission because tax memos cite layers: the statute, the case law interpreting the statute, the ATO ruling interpreting the case law, the secondary commentary on the ruling. Each layer can be drifted. Each layer needs verification. Claude pulls the citations into a list. You verify the list. The cost of skipping this step is a sanctions case. Pass 4. Brief yourself. Generate the one-page brief you'd take into a senior partner meeting Tuesday morning. The thesis of the document in one sentence. The 3 things that matter. The 2 things to push back on with the page references. The question you still need to answer. The recommendation. The one-pager is what you actually walk into the meeting with. Everything else, the spine map, the stress test, the verified citations, that's the plumbing. The one-pager is the deliverable. By Tuesday morning, you walk in with a brief that wouldn't have been possible by traditional reading in the time you had. Not a summary, a working document with the partner-level take ready to be discussed, defended, and acted on. The spine prompt, the foundation. The prompt for Pass 1 is the one most worth getting right because the other 3 passes hang from it. Here's what the panel uses. Attached, the document. Produce a structural map, the central thesis in one sentence, the chain of arguments in order, each in one sentence, the conclusions, with the section reference for each, the authorities relied on, listed by type, the assumptions made that aren't justified in the document. Flag any section where you are uncertain rather than guessing. The uncertain rather than guessing line is doing what it always does, preventing fabrication, telling Claude that admitting it doesn't know is a valid output. On a tax memo with hundreds of pages of nested analysis, that line is the difference between a usable map and a confident hallucination. 20 minutes after Claude responds, you know what the document is doing. The other 3 passes hang from this one. Now the caveat. Don't sign off, advise, or file based on the spine map alone. The 4 passes get you to the parts that need the deep read. The deep read on those parts is non-negotiable. If Pass 2 flags that the conclusion in Section 11 doesn't follow from the analysis in Section 4, you don't note that and move on. You go back, you read Section 4, you read Section 11, you make the call yourself. If Pass 3 flags a citation as uncertain, you verify the citation. If Pass 4 produces a one-page brief, you read the source pages for the 3 things that matter. The protocol identifies what to read deeply. It doesn't replace the deep reading itself. Use the saved time to read the right pages, not to read fewer pages. That's the discipline. Without it, the protocol becomes a sophisticated way to skim, and skimming is what the impossible document defeats. The volume was never the problem. The volume was always a stand-in for the real problem. Finding the 5 pages that matter inside the 200. Knowing which conclusion to push back on. Knowing where the buried concession is. Knowing what authority is fabricated and what is real. The 4 passes don't make you read faster. They make you read the right pages. That's the difference between a Tuesday morning meeting you walked into prepared and one where you didn't. The volume of the document was a proxy for that difference. Claude removes the proxy. The work that's left is the work you should have been doing all along. Coming next, building a chronology from fragments. How to construct the spine of a matter from emails, witness statements, contemporaneous notes, and the digital exhaust of a dispute, when none of it is in chronological order to start with. Subscribe so you don't miss it. That's the episode. See you in the next one.